Hello everybody, welcome back to another session of DS4HS. Today we're talking about the basics of Jupyter Lab. Now, this lesson is going to talk to you and introduce you to some of the basic operations and functions of Jupyter Labs. Now, from the beginning, it is worth remembering that Jupyter Notebooks is a subset of Jupyter Labs. So Jupyter Notebooks is a part of Jupyter Labs. Jupyter Labs is the overall arching environment, and Jupyter Notebooks is a part of that environment. Therefore, your Jupyter Lab interface is Jupyter Notebooks plus a whole lot more. Now, guys, it's important to remember that as data science for a high school student, you have 24/7 access to this fully loaded Linux-based remote desktop. So this whole remote desktop here, you guys always have access to it. You can come on this remote desktop whenever you want, any time of the day, any day of the week, so it's always accessible to you, okay? And its key application on your remote desktop is Jupyter Lab and your Jupyter Notebook. So this is always open, and you can always use to practice. And remember, practice, practice, practice helps us get better. Now, always remember the following. A Jupyter Notebook is made up of cells. Some cells contain Python code, while others contain informational text. They're also known as markdown cells, or even images. Now, use the following two commands to execute each Jupyter Notebook cell, and use the last command below to save the contents of your Jupyter Notebook. So the first one is Control Enter. So hitting Control Enter simultaneously runs your current cell without advancing to the next cell. So here, this blue line indicates what current cell you're at. So here, I'm at this current cell, here I'm at this current cell, and I just clicked it using my mouse. But now to do Control Enter, so we're going to do Control Enter, boom, and it executed the cell, but it did not advance me to the next cell. Now, Shift Enter does something different. Shift Enter, see what it did? It runs our cell and advances us to the next cell. So Control Enter runs it and doesn't advance. Shift Enter runs it and advances. And Control S saves it. So let me make a change right here. So I'm going to do Jupyter Notebook with two E's, Control S, and then Shift Enter, and then boom, it saved it. So it says Control Notebook or Jupyter Notebook with two E's. But then I'm going to change it back. Control S, Shift Enter, boom, and it executed the cell and then went to the next line. Control S, saved it. So I changed it to Jupyter Notebook with two E's, and then I changed it back to one E. So yeah, so Control Enter executes the cell without advancing to the next one. Shift Enter executes the cell and advances to the next one, and Control S saves the cell. Now, task 1 is exploring the two horizontal tabs and toolbars in our Jupyter Labs. Now notice the two separate and completely distinct toolbars in your Jupyter Lab console. So what we mean by that is here's a toolbar right here. So this is a horizontal toolbar, and then here's the second horizontal toolbar. And they're very, very important, and each have their own function. The first one, this one right here, is our toolbar for the Jupyter Notebook, and it's located directly above your Jupyter Notebook. Now the icons consist a little computer disk, a plus sign, scissors, two papers in front of each other, clipboard, a play sign, a pause, and then all these buttons right here. Now this toolbar right here directly relates to this notebook, okay, to this notebook. Now, this is the master toolbar up here, and this toolbar is for your Jupyter Lab. This is for the Jupyter Notebook, this is for the Jupyter Lab up here. And it gives us everything like file, edit, view, run, kernel, and these are for the overarching ecosystem, okay? So this right here is just for this notebook, while this is for the entire ecosystem. Shift Enter. Now, to review, the Jupyter Lab master toolbar, this one up here, is performing tasks such as opening and closing a new Jupyter Notebook within the Jupyter Lab workspace, or it could do opening and closing a terminal tab within the Jupyter Lab workspace. So this is for big picture stuff. So here, tab, I could activate a new tab, I could shut these Jupyter Notebooks down. It's kind of like the overarching, the mama bear of it all, the control center. And the Jupyter Notebook is for completing task inside this individual notebook. So I could cut a notebook, cut a cell, add a cell, and each of these spaces right here, so where this blue line is a cell. So this is a cell, up here's a cell, this is a cell, like I said. So yeah, so the master toolbar is for the entire Jupyter Lab environment, and then this toolbar is for this unique Jupyter Notebook. Okay, Shift Enter. Now, interact with Python in a Jupyter cell, just press Control Enter. So we can do Control Enter, but I'm doing Shift Enter because I want to advance this to the next one. Let me comment this out real quick. So we're going back here, and then I'm going to uncomment it now. Print, I will empower myself, so Shift Enter to print that, and then it prints it. And then you comment it out, so you're telling Python to ignore it, Shift Enter, and it ignores it, but we go back, Shift Enter, oh well, let me take out the pound, Shift Enter, and boom, it executes the cell while advancing us to the next one. Now, let's interact with the Jupyter Notebook's built-in help facilities. Just type in a single letter and press the tab key. Now this is very, very important, because by performing the simple operations, Jupyter Notebooks give us this very, very helpful pop-up window that will appear with all the commands that begin with this letter, the letter that we type. While all of these commands may seem foreign to you now, this will be an immensely helpful learning feature of Jupyter Notebooks. So right now, it says replace, we're just going to type in A, and then tab it out. Boom. Now it gives us everything starting with A. Let's do P. Everything starting with B. And even tells us what it is. It's a keyword, function, functions. Let's add the print function. And boom. It tells us print function. Don't worry that the Jupyter cell added an error message above. Your purpose of interacting with the cell was to demonstrate the pop-up help facility built into the Jupyter Lab. And what they mean by the error was this right here. Boom. We got an error because the syntax is invalid, but don't worry, we commented it out, so Python ignores it. When you comment something out, it tells Python to ignore it, so it doesn't run that code. Now on to task 3. What we're going to do is explore the Jupyter launcher. So the big blue button directly under the main Jupyter Lab toolbar. When you click on the big blue sorry, not the big blue button, the big blue plus button, directly under the main Jupyter toolbar. So this button right here, and when you click on the big blue plus button directly under the main Jupyter Lab toolbar, you access the Jupyter Launcher. The Jupyter Launcher provides easy access to 3 methods of interacting with Python for data science. So let's see. Oh wait, no, that's not the big blue button. Here, let me delete that cell. So we're looking for, when you click the big blue button directly under the Jupyter Lab toolbar, so right here, under the Jupyter Lab toolbar, see if we can find it. Right here, so this is the big blue one right here. And then we can open whatever we want. We can open a terminal, a console right here, Python 3, and now we're in the Python. We could open whatever we want. We could add another one. We could just open another notebook, create our own notebook. It's really cool stuff. So that's what it does right there. And then the Jupyter Launcher provides easy access to 3 methods of interacting with Python: a Jupyter Notebook, which we just saw, a Jupyter Lab console, and via the operating system terminal mode. So we saw 2 of the 3 things. And these 3 modes can also be accessed in the following manner as well. Within your Jupyter Lab console, click on the File option. So go over here and click File. And for those confused, how I got from the split screen right here, I just did Control B. So Control B gives us the whole screen with the notebook, but if you want the sidebar, you just do Control B again and it'll give it to you. But now let's try to access the 3 modes in a different manner. So we're going to hit File on the toolbar, and then once you've clicked File, there's going to be an option that says New. And then we're going to click New right here, and it's going to give us these 3 options: Console, Notebook, or Terminal. And we're going to click Terminal, boom, and it just gave us a terminal. So once the Terminal tab is open, we're now at the operating system prompt. For this system, the underlying operating system is Ubuntu Linux, and we can enter some Linux commands to prove to you that it's Linux. Let's do it. Let's do ls, shows us all the files, pwd, shows us the present working directory, and then what else does it want us to type? And let's also do bang pip3, and then show data science. Show data science. Enter. Boom. And it gives us that. So those are 3 commands, and it says, and this is an important note, guys. Note, it is worth noting that for the most basic Linux commands, Linux commands, you do not need to begin the command with the exclamation point symbol when running a Linux command in Jupyter Notebook cell. However, for non-standard Linux commands like pip3 show data science, starting with a exclamation point is mandatory. It is good practice to always start any Linux command you run in a Jupyter Notebook cell with the symbol with the exclamation symbol. Close the Jupyter tab in your Jupyter Lab workspace. What that exclamation symbol does, it's say, hey, this isn't a Python command, it's a Linux command, it's an operating system command, so treat it as such. So if you don't put that exclamation symbol there, also called a bang, then it'll confuse Jupyter Notebooks. So let's close it and let's check it out here. So pwd shows us the present working directory, and see, we did the exclamation mark, so we said take us back to the operating system, and that's exactly what it did. And then it showed us our present working directory. And then same thing here. This is telling us, show us all the files that end with the extension .ipynb, and that's exactly what it does. But it's saying we're also operating in we're working in the operating system, since we have the exclamation point, because the exclamation point is telling Jupyter Notebooks, take us to the operating system so we can run this command. And that's exactly what it did. And then same thing here. Let me hit it, Shift Enter. Takes a little load. Boom. And that's exactly what it does. It shows data science, shows the author. Yeah. And this is all in the operating system because we have that little exclamation part there. So yeah. So when you want to run something in the operating system, make sure you start it off with an exclamation point. Task 4, exploring the Jupyter Lab file manager. Now, click on last modified column. So it's going to be in this column right here. So we're just going to do Control B. Now last modified. Heading 3 times to see how the order of your files are sorted in ascending and then descending order. So here, this is an ascending. Right here, so a minute ago, 4 minutes ago, a day ago, and then this is in descending. So it's pretty cool stuff. So you click here to get it, and it'll tell you the arrow. So here, we're going ascending, descending, and now we're going to press Control B, so it's going to get rid of this sidebar. Boom, and then we get the whole Jupyter Notebook cell. So we get the whole notebook to ourselves if we need more screen space. Now. Where did we go? Now, entering the following in the filter files by name dialog box and watch what files appear. So PINB and .csv. So we want to do it. So we're going to do Control B again. Control B and filter by file name. It screws us up when we go here. So we're going to do IPY. Oh, shift enter. What happened here? Enter the following. Enter. Okay, so we're entering the following names, IPYNB, boom, and then it's going to highlight everything that has PYNB or CSV, and these are just the ends of the files. So it just shows us everything, the CSV files here, and it's pretty cool stuff. But let's do .csv so it knows, and it shows us we only have one CSV file. Control B. And then task 5 is going to be cell configuration. So what's code, markdown, and raw. So everything with code right here is markdown. Everything with text is markdown. So at the very top of this Jupyter Notebook, at the very top of any Jupyter Notebook is another toolbar, the Jupyter Notebook toolbar right here. And at the end of the toolbar is a drop-down menu with 3 specific options to set specific cell editing mode. So here we have markdown, and then we go up here and it says code. We can change it to markdown. Shift enter, and it changes to markdown. So anything with text is a markdown cell. Anything with code is code, and then raw is neither markdown or code. But we're going to go over that in just a little bit. So code is for entering interactive Python code. So when you want to code, you have to make sure you're in a code cell. And when you want to write in text, you have to make sure you're in a markdown cell. So if you want to add an image, write text, put a math problem, anything with symbols that doesn't follow the Python grammar or syntax, use markdown. And the default cell editing mode is code. So if you want to make a markdown cell, you have to change it to markdown. Or you could select markdown or press escape M while your cursor is in the cell. Both of those work. Now, thank you guys for sticking with us. One thing that you guys need to know is, as a data science for high school student, you have 24/7 access to your own fully loaded Linux-based remote desktop. This is this right here. You have this whole system all to yourself. It's a key application, and it also has, it's not just a remote desktop, but it also has a browser here, Jupyter Labs, Jupyter Notebooks already preloaded, and it's really, really helpful. Now, the majority and pretty much all of your data science for high school assignments are going to be presented in this notebook in Jupyter Notebooks. However, as you get comfortable with the content presented in Jupyter Notebooks, you are encouraged to open a Jupyter Lab terminal session to see if you can perform the hands-on coding task in any Jupyter DS4HS Jupyter Notebook directly in a Python terminal without the support of Jupyter Notebooks. So that's what we're building you up for. The Jupyter Notebooks help you, are kind of like training wheels, and hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to open up a terminal and type in the code in the real world. Now, if you can't do this, this is just fine. No need to worry. You can always revert back to the Jupyter Notebooks. Like I said, these things are open 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, so you can use them whenever you want. You can use the Jupyter Notebooks, the terminal, you can even go in the browser, whatever you want. And we encourage you guys to use this as much as possible because it's the key to mastering Python coding concepts, and it's the key to mastering this class, this language, and anything coding related. So yeah, you guys have a good one. Thank you so much.